I'm under arrest.
Just do as you're told, please.
And Harry.
Craig, I've done nothing wrong.
I know. Get the out of my way.
Hey, come on now.
I'm not messing. Get out of
You
my
gotta be
way.
So, this is John, okay? Alright, John? Right.
If he's unconscious, he needs me. He needs warm clothes. He needs mum. He needs his look.
It's okay.
We understand you're very upset. We've got an investigation.
I'm very upset. I've just lost my son. You've taken my other children away.
How does a happy, energetic 5-year-old kid just vanish out of his own bed without a single trace? Picture this. It's 6 in the morning. A mother calls emergency services. Well, the police in Wales. Absolutely losing her mind, screaming, crying, saying her little boy is just gone.
Please help me, please. Where are you?
My son's not here. My boy is not here. Help
Take a breath. Take a breath, because I can't understand you when you're crying. Where are you?
5 Lower Lansdowne, Freddie the Son.
Lower what, sorry?
Lower Lansdowne, Freddie the Son. Send somebody is not here.
Okay. Who's not there?
My son, he's alive. He's not here.
Okay, take a breath. When did you see him last?
I touched him in the bed last night and I've just got up for my son and the other one's not here. Logan!
Okay, take a breath. He's 5 and he's gone. Can you see any
Logan! Logan!
I need you to speak to me, not just shout. I know it's really full on and it's really scary. I need you to tell me. What's his name? Is his name Logan?
Logan Williams.
And he's 5. Is he 5, did you say?
He's 5, please.
Okay. Tell me what he looks like, please.
He's a little mixed race boy. He's just got his spidey pajamas on. Wearing shoes.
Okay, is anybody else there with you? Any other adults?
Yeah, my partner. He's looking out.
Right. Are any of the doors or windows open?
What doors, windows, what's open? Someone tell me what.
Naturally, the cops rush over. They're thinking some predator snuck in through a back window. But honestly, the real monster wasn't roaming the streets. It was already inside the house. And what follows is a sick web of fake COVID excuses, ignored red flags, and a kid's bedroom locked from the outside. This all went down on July 31st, 2021, in a town called Bridgend. When the first officers walked into the apartment, the mother put on a total performance. I mean, a massive theatrical breakdown, throwing herself around, sobbing, screaming that she's innocent, acting exactly how she thought a grieving mom should act.
Well, I'm not allowed to see my own biological son.
I heard. Look.
He is unconscious. Why is he unconscious?
Listen, I don't know. Right now, the best thing...
All I'm getting is answers like this. Why is no one telling me what's going on?
I don't know. Sweetheart, look.
He's
please.
my baby. What's going on?
I need to do the job. Yeah?
And the cops bought it at first. They started knocking on doors and combing the neighborhood. Everyone loved this kid. He was always smiling. But this search, it didn't last long. And the twist is gut-wrenching. Just a few hundred yards away, there's a river running through a local park. A few officers are walking the bank, looking out at the water, when they spot something in the shallows. At first glance, they think it's just trash, a piece of garbage someone dumped. But as they get closer, the brutal reality hits them. It's not trash, it's the little boy. They pull him out, but it's way too late. And I won't go into the graphic details, but the condition of his body was so deeply disturbing that the officers who found him literally needed professional counseling for PTSD afterward. Just think about that for a second. Right then and there, the whole kidnapping story evaporated. This poor kid didn't just wander off. He wasn't snatched by a stranger. Investigators immediately locked down the park and sprinted right back to that apartment, the same apartment where the mom was still playing the victim. Now, the cops had to figure out what actually happened behind those closed doors. So, while the mom is still putting on this massive, tearful performance in the living room, Detectives are already out back pulling security footage from the neighbors. Now, she swore up and down that she slept like a baby all night, completely clueless that her son was gone. But the cameras caught absolutely everything and totally blew her alibi to pieces. Get this, at exactly 2:43 in the morning, hours before she ever called the cops, a camera down the street catches two figures sneaking out of the ground floor flat. It is the stepfather, John Cole, and his 14-year-old stepson, Craig Mulligan. In this grainy footage, you can literally see Cole carrying the 5-year-old's body in his arms, walking straight toward the River Ogmore. But it gets even worse. After dumping the poor kid in the water, they do not even go back to bed. The cameras catch them making a second trip to the riverbank just to throw the boy's torn dinosaur pajama top into the bushes. Now remember, the mom claimed she was totally passed out during all of this, but investigators noticed something crazy. There was a reflection in a window right across the narrow street, mirroring the family's flat. And right as the body is being moved outside, the footage shows the interior lights flipping on and off. Then the living room curtains open and close. She was not asleep at all. She was wide awake watching the whole cover-up happen from the window. Instead of calling for an ambulance, she spent those early morning hours gathering up her son's heavily blood-stained bed sheets. And she didn't try to hide them later. In one of the most jaw-dropping moves of the whole case, she actually rammed the washing machine while the first responding officers were physically standing inside her home. Think about that for a second. As she cried and begged them to find her missing boy, she was actively destroying the primary physical evidence of her murder right in front of their faces. So the police finally lock down the flat, right? And then the forensics team starts taking pictures. But what those photos showed, it was insane. Literally two completely different worlds existing under one roof. Way in the back of the hallway, you have Logan's bedroom, but calling it a bedroom is a joke. It was basically a dungeon. They stripped the walls totally bare. They kept the window curtains permanently shut, so the poor kid was just trapped in pitch blackness. And get this, they put up a giant baby gate across the door, but they rigged it so it locked strictly from the outside. He was stuck in there like a prisoner in solitary confinement, completely blocked from screaming for help. Honestly, the whole setup makes me sick, especially when you see how the rest of them lived. The rest of the family, including a younger baby, lived in standard, comfortable conditions. But the absolute craziest detail showing just how evil these people were, it is what they did right after moving his body. John Cole, Angahard, and the teenager walked back into the flat after dumping a dead 5-year-old in the river. Do they panic? Do they cry? No. They order a takeaway meal. They literally sat down and casually ate fast food. Just hours after throwing a kid in the water like trash, they just moved on with their morning. And check this out. While those three monsters are munching on their food, the cops have the absolute worst job in the world. They have to track down Logan's real dad, Ben Mwangi. See, Angerhart had aggressively manipulated custody arrangements to keep Ben away, completely alienating him from Logan since April 2019. Ben had zero clue about the horrific abuse happening behind those closed curtains. So when the police finally knock on his door to drop this bomb on him, it completely breaks him. He had to sit there and process the fact that his little boy suffered all alone in silence, and he never even got to hold him one last time. On July 21st, Logan tests positive for COVID-19, and instead of taking care of him, this family straight up weaponized it. They used the strict lockdown rules as a permanent shield to keep the entire world out. The virus gave them a legally protected excuse to lock the front door, trap the poor kid in that bare room, and basically erase him from the family unit, while the rest of the household just went about their normal daily routines. Now, child protection agencies were actually supposed to be keeping an eye on this family, but the system completely failed him because of a documented breakdown the official review called optimism bias, meaning social workers and medical staff just desperately wanted to believe these parents were good people, so they never aggressively cross-checked their stories. And it all reached a fatal breaking point on July 29th, just 2 days before Logan was killed. A social worker arrives at the flat for a routine check. Angarad stops her right at the door, citing the strict COVID isolation rules. And instead of breaking protocol and saying, "Look, I need to physically lay eyes on the child," the worker just accepts the mother's excuse and walks away. With the authorities successfully deflected, the nightmare inside that flat just escalated without any outside interference. Inside his locked room, Logan was deliberately starved. As a method of physical punishment, Cole forced the exhausted 5-year-old to hold difficult push-up positions for literally hours. And when his tiny arms gave out and he collapsed, he was subjected to deliberate burns and severe blunt force assaults. But we did not know the true scale of what Logan endured during those final days of isolation until the autopsy details came back from the Home Office pathologist. The medical examiner documented somewhere between 56 and 63 separate external injuries all over his small body. Internally, the damage was catastrophic. His liver was completely torn, accompanied by massive fatal trauma to his bowel. In court, the pathologist testified that the sheer blunt force required to cause those specific internal ruptures is exactly what you would see if a child fell from a height of over 10 feet or was involved in a high-velocity car crash. It was a sustained, brutal attack, hidden entirely behind a medical excuse. To understand how the abuse reached such a catastrophic level, investigators looked closely at the 39-year-old stepfather, John Cole. This guy was a total fraud. He actively presented himself to the local community as a highly trained ex-SAS operative, frequently boasting about a fabricated special forces and martial arts background. While his military history was a complete lie, he used those martial arts techniques to physically dominate and punish Logan. On top of that, Cole had a documented history with the National Front, a known racist organization. He routinely directed racial slurs at the mixed-race 5-year-old, establishing a household dynamic built on targeted prejudice and absolute physical control. But Cole was not inflicting the trauma alone. The danger inside the flat multiplied exponentially when his 14-year-old stepson, Craig Mulligan, was brought into the picture. In the official safeguarding reviews, they call him Child O. Craig spent a significant portion of his life moving through the foster care system, and he carried a deeply disturbing record of extreme, unprovoked violence, which included a documented history of harming animals. In fact, one of his former foster carers gave a direct, terrified warning to social services during an assessment. The carer described the teenager as pure evil, explicitly warning the agencies that Cole was training the boy like a dog to execute violent commands. The carer stated they genuinely feared the teenager was being molded into an assassin by his stepfather. Despite these severe warnings regarding the teenager's psychopathic tendencies, the system made a series of catastrophic administrative decisions. Just weeks earlier, social services had stepped down their involvement, removing Logan from the official child protection register because they falsely believed the family was cooperating. Then, on July 26th, they made their most fatal error. Exactly 5 days before Logan was murdered, child protection agencies officially placed the 14-year-old into the family's flat. They moved a highly violent teenager directly into the locked, COVID-isolated environment, where a 5-year-old was already fighting to survive. So the cops lock them up, and guess what? The mom changes her tune immediately. See, the second that security footage completely ruined her kidnapping lie, she goes straight into a new act. She plays the poor, helpless victim. During her interviews, she actually admits she sat right there and watched John Cole beat her little boy. Her entire defense? She claims she was just way too terrified of the guy to stop it or call for help. But the detectives did not buy a single word of it. They checked her phone records and found something crazy. 6 months earlier, back in January 2021, she called 999. On that tape, she did not sound scared at all. She confidently kicks Cole out of the flat and tells the operator the guy is dangerous. But then, she lets him right back in the very next day. So that audio completely proved she was not paralyzed by fear. She knew exactly how bad he was, and she chose to keep him around anyway. And while the two adults are busy blaming each other, the 14-year-old stepson, Craig Mulligan, is doing stuff that completely grossed out the police. He is sitting in his cell, totally fine with the fact that a 5-year-old is dead, and he starts singing, just casually singing to himself. And the lyrics? They were literally about punching little kids in the head. The 10-week trial finishes up, and the jury? They find all 3 of them guilty of murder. But the courtroom went totally nuts. You had this crazy split screen. The mom, Angarad, goes right back to her usual drama. She collapses in the dock, screaming, "No, no, no," and crying hysterically. But the stepdad and the 14-year-old kid? Nothing. Completely stone-faced. They just stood there, cold as ice, showing absolutely zero emotion after getting nailed for murder. Then the judge gives her final word, and she really laid into them. She handed out life sentences to everybody. Cole gets at least 29 years, the mom gets 28, and the teenager gets 15. The judge also completely called out their garbage excuse about the river. They tried to claim they just panicked, but she wasn't buying it. She called it a cold, calculating cover-up. But honestly, locking them up didn't fix the total disaster left behind. Logan's death proved the whole system was broken. The official review dragged the hospital teams, the council, and the cops. Basically, everyone worked in their own little bubbles. Nobody looked at the big picture or realized this poor kid was in extreme danger. The final report listed 5 massive screw-ups that basically cost this kid his life. First, way back in 2020, Logan goes to the hospital with a broken collarbone, but the staff never tells social services. Second, the cops don't even bother to investigate how it happened. Third, social services stupidly took him off the protection list right before he died. Fourth, social workers let the mom use fake COVID rules to keep them from ever seeing the kid. And fifth, the system literally dropped a violent, dangerous teenager into that exact home just 5 days before the murder. This poor 5-year-old was treated like a prisoner and thrown out like trash, completely failed by every single person who is supposed to keep him safe.